Senator James Lankford is on the phone from Washington, D.C. Senator, always great to have you on the Tod Tucker Show. Glad you're here.
You bet. Thank you. Good morning, by the way, from the 202. So
good morning.
Here as well.
I'm sure it's great to talk to the 405.
It is actually always nice.
I got to ask you a couple of things. First of all, Senator, hope you're doing well. And we're looking forward to holiday time when you get to come home, and maybe we'll have you in studio. That would be awesome. And
that'd be great.
And I wanted to. We were talking a little bit ago. Frosty gave us a story on Facebook and on how there's been some hacking at Facebook, and there's extreme sides that create pages to instigate trouble. There are some Russian ties to it. So last week, the Senate Intelligence Committee, you challenged social media executives to do more to stop misleading and false advertising from Russian entities. How do you feel that went? And do you believe that some of our social media outlets share some responsibility in this?
Well, they share responsibility only because they ignored it. It was income coming in. They were aware of it, and they didn't confront it. So my issue is Facebook, Twitter, all those are free, open, free speech platforms.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with that. Keep free speech going. But when you're aware it's a foreign actor that's trying to actually do us harm, you should probably just make people aware of that. So my question came to them, was actually a surprise to some people. Only about 9% of all of what the Russians did last year was election related. And everyone thinks all they were focused on was election. 9% of what they were doing was election. The rest of it was divisive issues.
Mm-hmm.
They would find some area where Americans are already fighting,
Yep.
and they would do bots and raise the hashtag numbers out, and it would show up like it was a really big issue. It was an issue, but it wasn't as big. They made it bigger, or they would try to drive people out. And so I asked the social media companies, what other topics did the Russians do that you have seen? And it was like crickets in the room. They did not want to answer that question. So I pressed them on it, and it came out. They were talking about immigration. They were talking about LGBT issues.
Uh-huh.
They were talking about Black Lives Matter. This year they've talked about the NFL and boycott the NFL. So all these issues, whatever Americans are fighting on, the Russians get some sort of secret pleasure from actually trying to be able to go in there and be able to amp that up. And I think that's a problem.
And I think I'm thinking that this could become a problem and a tool of ISIS as well, maybe. Because if they're finding it's working with the Russians, we have other enemies out there.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Facebook and Twitter and all them, they have worked to be able to identify terrorism based from ISIS, child predators, online drug sales. They've worked very hard to try to eliminate those things when they find them.
Right.
They have not done the same with the Russians trying to influence either elections or trying to be able to influence in other areas. So I asked them basically put the same diligence that you're putting to try to isolate terrorism online and social media to this focus as well, because there's just no need to have it. I mean, there was a case last year where the Russians actually pushed out a simultaneous event with two groups of people in opposition to each other at the same time. Neither group even knew it was organized by the Russians.
Unreal.
In New York City, right after the election, they organized an anti-Trump rally to come march through the streets of New York City. It was entirely organized by the Russians. So this type of event through social media, people are now accustomed to just a random group that they've seen that they believe in organizing an event, and they show up. And right now they're not aware. People are not aware. Some of those events are actually not organized by a fellow American. Some of those are organized by a Russian.
So as you know, last night in 12 cities, people were screaming at the sky on the anniversary of Donald Trump's election. Do you think that was Russian motivated? I mean, is there a possibility that they got that stirred up on social media?
You know what? I doubt all of it was. There might have been some of it. For all these issues, I don't blame the Russians for creating it.
Right.
They literally scan through our social media, look for areas where we're already doing things, and then just try to amp it up.
So they just take take divisive issues. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just trying to find anything divisive and then go after it. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. They tried to be able to organize a rally like that in conflict with each other in Idaho and had exactly 0 people show up. So my big focus from the social media companies were when we walk through the grocery store and we get to the checkout and see the tabloid and see the headline that's crazy, we recognize it's a tabloid, it's crazy.
Right. We got to figure out how to do that with social media.
That's correct. We got to be able to see it, know it, and they need to be able to find a way to be able to designate it. Hey, this is from Sputnik. This is from Russia Today. This is from a Russian group. We need to be able to just identify it so when we see it, we can recognize it on our own.
So it looks like health care reform is something we're going to have to wait on, but tax reform seems more realistic before the end of the year. How confident are you that we're going to pass tax reform this year?
I'm very confident we're going to get it passed. It'll be one of those things that Americans will spend the next 2 years trying to be able to figure out because there's so much involved in tax reform. But the basics of it is simplify tax filing, period. Bring rates down, especially for folks in the working class where they've continued to see the rates just creep up over the past several years. Let's get that back in control. And let's figure out how we can fix business taxes to actually make them competitive. This is not a focus on helping big business. But frankly, almost everyone in America works for someone else. So if we can actually fix some of the business tax issues, it helps with wages for everybody. And so I'd like to be able to see that. So I think it's going to have promise. We are still focused in on, there's a whole group of us working on how do we deal with the individual man for health care while we do tax reform, to do both things at once. I think we can, and it's now trying to be able to make sure that we've got the actual votes to do it. So we've not given up on the health care pieces either.
Right. The American people are spend a lot of money on tax preparation as well, which we have to simplify that.
It's billions,
Yeah, tons. So now we move on to judicial nominations. The Democrats just won't give up on the fact that they lost, and they continue to just the gridlock is like I've never seen before. They are doing everything they can to stop Republicans and specifically the president more than ever. So my question is, how in the heck do we stop this gridlock and get these judicial nominees through faster?
So I've actually worked with Democratic colleagues and I've worked with Republicans to bring forward a proposal to say, here's how we can fix the clock. Because, and I warned all my Democrats, what you're doing to us, I promise we will do to you in the very next time. And it will be amped up and it will continue to be a problem for the American people. So we've got to fix this now and to be able to put a stop to it. So I put a proposal to limit debate, 2 hours on judges, 8 hours on everybody else, 30 hours for like the Supreme Court or a cabinet. That's a very reasonable proposal that allows us to be able to move multiple people through in a day and to be able to debate other issues of legislation. If we cannot get that done, I propose to my Republican colleagues we use the Harry Reid rule and just change it with 51 and drop it to 2 hours for everybody except for Supreme Court and cabinet. They would be 30, but then everybody would be 2 hours and we would really be able to rapidly move through this. The process of confirmation in the Senate was not designed to be impossible. It was designed by the Constitution to be advice and consent. We could do that and still get through the calendar quickly.
Back to health care real fast, Senator. A lot of people are really concerned about that. And I just want to know, for people that are really losing sleep over and not able to afford health care, how realistic is it that we are going to get a bipartisan deal in the next year or so to fix our health care system? Because it is broken. We know it's broken. And it doesn't seem that the Democrats want to play ball with the Republicans. No. And I honestly, I would like to see the Republicans stand a little firmer and start naming names. How confident are you that we're going to see health care reform in the near future?
Within the next year, I think there will be some steps on it. The problem is Obamacare took a badly broken health care system and broke it worse. And so it will take years to be able to unwind from this. One of the things that we're trying to focus in on is the individual mandate. If you can take that out, that allows individuals with very high-cost policies to be able to buy other policies that are not controlled by Washington, D.C., so they'll be cheaper. So if we can do just that one piece at the end of this year, that allows people to be able to have options next year to be able to buy different types of health care plans that actually they can afford.
60 more seconds. One more. I've got a listener who just sent me a message, and he wants to know what your take is on the Russians' goal in hacking. And I hate to go backwards. We talked about that at the beginning of the conversation. But just quickly, what do you think their goal is?
Their goal is they're kind of a zero-sum game. If anything hurts their enemies, then they feel like it helps them. So they have done this in lots of countries in Europe, and they've started doing it in the United States. All they're trying to do is stir the pot, get us into conflict, keep us distracted, and so that they can continue to do it. They can't keep up with our military. They certainly can't keep up with our economy. So they're trying to find ways to be able to just bring everybody else down. It's like the bully on the playground that's just trying to name names and to try to be able to help pull everybody else down. Because they can't pull themselves up.
Gotcha. Senator, I really appreciate your time. In fact, I'm really proud of myself because we finished before Allie sent me a text message and said, "You need to hang up now."
Well, congratulations on that as well. Hey, take care, y'all.
I appreciate you, Senator James Lankford. We'll talk to you soon. Always glad to talk to the senator. Always.